It'll all be caught on camera.
Test.
Hey, the guy with the Vietnam hat on, thank you for your service.
Iraqi.
What's it say?
Iraqi war.
Well, it says Vietnam.
Veteran.
Iraq war veteran.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read.
He didn't wear his glasses. That's all. He can read.
Okay.
Ma'am, could you bring
This
that
time,
sign up just a little bit closer to Jim so we can see Officer Schurr?
Am I? I don't think so. Sure is worth it. No.
Test.
Can you hear him?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here and standing up today for a right we as Americans should never forsake. I stand with you all today to defend the right to self-defense. The right to use lethal force when necessary, when our lives are threatened. Last week I introduced House Bill 4404, which strengthens Public Act 309 of 2006, aptly named the Michigan Self-Defense Act. Our right to self-defense is rooted in natural law. It is also rooted in the Constitution. It is also explained and permitted in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Article 2263 of the Catechism states, "The act of self-defense can have a double effect: the preservation of one's own life and the killing of the aggressor." Article 2264 of the Catechism states, "Love towards oneself remains a fundamental principle of morality. Therefore, it is legitimate to insist on respect for one's own right to life. Someone who defends his life is not guilty of murder, even if he is forced to deal his aggressor a lethal blow." Article 2265 of the Catechism states, "Legitimate defense is not only a right, but a grave duty for someone responsible for another's life. Preserving the common good requires rendering the unjust aggressor unable to inflict harm." I'm here today to tell you that these exact circumstances existed for Officer Christopher Schurr. I'm here to tell you about my bill that I have just introduced. It will make Michigan's self-defense protections among the strongest in the nation. Currently, defendants must still prove in civil court that their use of force was justified, even if cleared criminally. House Bill 4404 fixes this by creating a presumption of civil immunity after a favorable criminal outcome, shifting the burden onto the plaintiffs to prove otherwise. It also explicitly covers the threatened use of force, people who might warn an attacker versus someone who just uses force without warning an attacker, which is not clearly protected under current law. This change to the law will offer the defender full recovery of legal costs. People found immune can recover attorney fees, court costs, and lost wages, easing the financial burden of defending themselves. While someone defending themselves has a moral responsibility to do what they possibly can before eliminating the threat, an ordered society must also defend those who, for the sake of their own life, for the sake of the lives of others, must act in a split second to use necessary force to stop their attackers. My father had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. One of his brothers was a fireman, and one of his brothers was a policeman. In 1967, riots broke out in Detroit, and my Uncle Jack was sent in to fight the fires. On the first night, my uncle and his fire engine crew were shot at by the rioters. The next night, my Uncle Phil was sent in with the truck, riding with a shotgun to defend the firemen. They were given orders to shoot to kill anyone who threatened them with a gun, knife, or a firebomb. It was an extremely unfortunate situation to be sent into, and my grandmother feared the loss of her 2 sons. We stand here today to defend life, not to take it. We stand here today with Officer Christopher Schurr. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Am I safe, viewers?
Certainly.
Hi, folks. My name is Adam DeAngeli, member of the founder of the organization, the Coalition to Rescue Michigan. I want to first of all say that Christopher Schurr is an innocent man.
Yes.
And that the video evidence proves it. There should be nothing further to be done here. And the fact that he has been dragged through this trial is in itself a terrible crime. Because the evidence shows on video that after a confrontation that proceeded for a period of at least 4 minutes, Patrick Lyoya disobeyed every single command the officer gave him, from stay inside the vehicle to stop resisting, to the point where he was engaged in a hand-to-hand battle for control of the officer's taser, which in unlawful hands is a deadly weapon.
Exactly.
A weapon that could be used to disable the police officer or anybody else. And in fact, on the video, the undisputed evidence shows that at the moment the officer used his firearm in self-defense, he was fighting on the ground, hand-to-hand for control of his taser. That is a question of law, whether or not that's self-defense. The facts are not disputed. The district judge, Judge Ayub, even said in his decision, his terrible decision, but he admitted, he conceded the fact that there is no disputation of facts here. A jury is supposed to be the finder of fact, not the decider of law. That's supposed to be the judge's job. The Michigan Supreme Court has failed Officer Schurr, the Michigan Court of Appeals failed Officer Schurr, and this judge failed Officer Schurr. And every police officer in Michigan will pay the price for this.
Absolutely. Amen.
Because every single police officer has to fear that using his own weapon in self-defense, which is, by the way, a fear that police officers, more than the average person has to have because of the nature of their job, that they might be the next Officer Schurr. That they would be the next person to have their life destroyed. That is a public safety concern for every single person in Michigan. So I want to applaud Representative Jim DeSana for introducing his legislation to, first off, expand the rights of those exercising their lawful use of self-defense by protecting them from civil penalties. I understand a criminal bill is on the way as well, because they're also suing Christopher Schurr for $100 million. Yes, $100 million. We can only pray that the jury reaches the right outcome in this case. And even if they do, the officer's life has been devastated. That is a terrible thing. So I want to salute Representative DeSana, and frankly, everyone here who has had the courage to come out and stand for truth and to stand for justice. Because this man needs our help. What's happened to him is a crime. And we should stand with him, stand for the right for the lawful use of self-defense, and every day pray the jury reaches the right outcome in this case. Because frankly, it shouldn't have come to them in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I would just reiterate, my concern is for every police officer in the state of Michigan. When I took my CPO class, they tell you what to do when you're dealing with a violent threat, when your life is threatened. And a question was asked whether you shoot to wing somebody, and this class was offered by 2 police officers, and both of them said no. You shoot to the center of mass, you eliminate the threat. So this is a very unfortunate situation where a person didn't comply with an officer's orders over and over and over, and chose to engage the officer violently and then to take his taser. This is not the result that any of us would want for a human being. But one's own life and the society we live in requires the ability for us to defend ourselves, sometimes in this type of fashion. And this officer does not deserve what is happening to him today. And we are all here to stand with him and to get the whole state of Michigan to stand with this officer and stand with our law enforcement, that this is not right, that a police officer who is defending us and defending himself should be brought into a court of law for only acting in self-defense. Thank you.
Just comply.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
I love the phrase that you use.
Let's say it, justice.
Hoping you weren't
for
going to
sure.
say use deadly force.
Can I get
Never
it,
use
justice?
Shoot
Justice
to kill.
for sure.
Shoot to
Justice for sure.
To eliminate.
Justice for sure.
Thank you, sir.
Justice for sure. Thank you.
Justice for sure.
All right, one more. Justice for sure.
All right.
Thank you.
We will meet you back on the corner. I'll be back on the corner with you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. How about we go here?
Yeah.
across the
Um,
line, straight this way.
Mike is still on, okay. If anyone would have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
How much support do you think you'll have with these people?
I think there's a lot of support for self-defense. This act was enacted in 2006. This goes further than the act. We already have a pretty strong act. This goes a little further in allowing the presumption of innocence. When somebody goes into a civil trial, they are presumed innocent until proven guilty, versus the presumption of guilt when somebody is brought into a criminal trial.
What kind of a timeline then are you looking at to get this together?
The bill was introduced last week, so it'll go to a committee and probably a 1-month timeline.
Does this affect civil lawsuit?
Yeah, this is mainly affects civil law, not criminal. This 4044.
Have you spoken with any of the leadership about this? Do you have their express support?
I have spoken with leadership and spoken with my colleagues in leadership, and most of my colleagues, I would say 100% of my colleagues support this concept.
What pushback have you heard to this bill from the other side?
You know, I know that people feel like the court of law is where everything is decided, and I think that when there's criticism about what happens in a courtroom, they would say, well, let it just all happen in court. But we've got this gigantic, unfair system where people are hauled civilly into court for doing their job. And that's really what this is all about. And I think that that criticism, while valid, doesn't hold true for a person acting in self-defense. To be able to have their lives ruined and to be sued for millions and millions of dollars. And when you're acting in self-defense, you have split-second judgment. You have to, oftentimes you have what they'll tell you when you take your CPL class, the distance that the threat is from you and how long you have to act before you're now in a tussle for your weapon.
Sir? I thought I remember hearing a number of years ago, I think it was Governor Rushing, that said if you were found innocent, you were not liable for any civil damages. Is that correct? Kind of correct? Or
Currently, if you are found innocent in a criminal trial, you can still be sued civilly, and you have to prove that you acted in self-defense.
Have you spoken with or heard from police officers or police unions with regards to your bill?
We invited the FOP to be here today. They support the bill, and they would have been here. They couldn't get somebody here today on short notice. This was all started last week.
What is their reaction to the bill? Do they support it? Do they have any suggestions or input with regards regards to the actual language of the bill?
The minor feedback I've gotten is that they support the concept of the bill, which is someone should not be sued civilly after being found innocent or being found not guilty in a court of law. And I'll be happy to take any other questions individually for anybody. I'll stay here. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you guys.